Merdeka. Dan saya merekomen buku Hassan dan saya tidak akan cuba tidak masuk detail dalam that era because it's been explained quite nicely and quite thoroughly, I think, from the book. So I strongly recommended everybody to get the book. It's called Malaysian Cinema in a Bottle, and I think if you wondering why the titles are that, is here to answer. So before, and I'm also looking forward to see how Hassan will talk about stress and the future immigrants in Singapore, and so it'll be interesting. So, but then I just want to touch a little bit after the 1965 when the Malay Jalan Ampas or Showbrothers moved to Malaysia in KL, specifically in KL, and opened up Bicara studio and with the existence of a Filem Negara. And then there is almost a void in Singapore cinema. Before that, all this while, from 65, where Singapore sort of got the independence, the cinema is all predominantly Malay language. It's Malay-based culture, Malay-based language, Malay-based society kind of issue. Dia memperbincangkan tentang itu kan. I hope you don't mind sebab I think there are a few yang do you understand Malay? I'm so sorry.
Not really.
I will recommend you to learn Malay.
Yes, no, I agree.
Strongly recommend because okay, we try to be polite for so we'll speak mix, eh?
That's very nice.
Okay. Okay. So saya minta izin kita cakap bahasa Inggeris sedikit sebab kita kan bangsa yang memulut kan. So it's basically the whole cinema of if Singapore claim that portion also is part of Singapore cinema, which is valid because it's sort of we share. So it's basically based on the Malay culture, Malay society, Malay stories, and Malay language. And then when they gain independence, or Shaw moved, basically the whole operation moved to Hong Kong because of independence, or because of the film people start having union. Started by Shaari semua tu kan, so they don't quite like it. So it stopped there. Then there's a void, because most of them went to Malaysia. Interestingly, in 1973, then Singapore said we have to do. There are some people that wanted to do film, so there is a film called Ring of Fury. So Singapore wanted to do their own start to a cinema, so they did a Ring of Fury, di mana they wanted to have a different concept from the studio-based shoestring. So they did a kind of a big in color and a white screen. They tried to use the what is popular at that time, the issue, the subject matter, that is martial arts. So the film, is I remember, Ring of Fury, 1973, was inspired, I think, by Bruce Lee kind of thing. There's a hawker in Singapore that's been pressured by the gangster, kena pau kan. So accidentally killed the mother, so they revenge. So there's a whole lot of action. And the other ingredient like sex, but the interesting he played in Malaysia actually, but it was banned in Singapore. So it never got played in Singapore because I managed to see after about 25 years it's screened in Singapore Film Festival, and so the ban was lifted. So because it was. They tried to recut it, but the banning is not really because of sex, but because of Singapore do not advocate taking the law in their own hands. Macam tu, they are sensitive on that. So another few other films come up. So somebody did a film wanted to do film also on those kind of action film. So I remember the film.
Cleopatra Jones.
Before that, I'm talking about before that. Before Cleopatra Wong. That is after that. Okay, that's it. Before that, there is a company that wanted to make Singapore cinema. Okay, interesting thing at that time, everything is Mandarin lah. There's nothing got to do with Malay based anything. So Mandarin. So the Ring of Fury is Mandarin. So the next one, the independent, they did one called, which I've not seen, because I saw the third one. Called, the first one is called Crime Doesn't Pay. The second one, Hypocrite, and then the third one, they did called Two Sides of a Bridge, where it deals with a Kelantanese Malay boy, Chinese came to Singapore and wanted to marry. Girlfriend. There was a Chinese girl. So it's a story about that. So it's this kampung Chinese from Kelantan come back and have this culture shock of the modernity of Singapore. But the interesting thing, because it's now it's a Mandarin, there's a scene in Kelantan where his friend is called Fatima speaks Mandarin. So it's the whole thing is because it wants to cater for the Singapore cinema at that time is not catering more on the Mandarin speaking. Although they wanted to expand to be international, to send it to international, and then only then there's a company of a combination of a Philippine, Singapore, and Malaysia. There's one Malay man combined with a Filipino man and a Chinese man, made a company called, I can't remember, BAS. This is all memory. My database a lot of virus. So then they did a couple of films. That is what Hassan mentioned just now. Call Me Cleopatra Wong. It's heavily influenced by black exploitation. At that time, there is Cleopatra Jones, right? And then they even wanted, in the pipeline, they wanted to do one where they invited Sarima to act, to do in one project. Their fourth project in which it fell through, called The Destroyer, where this this woman, action woman, macam fighter ni kan. So what I see is that to me although 1973 Ring of Fury was the first to be made, it's never been shown. So the truly first Singaporean made film was screened publicly over there was Two Sides of a Bridge. It's about a drama of a two antara dua darjat kind of concept, but this kampung and modern Malaysia and Singapore combined. Then all these are not so well received in box office. So there's that was the end of '79. So there's a big void until the new independence comes. That's where I have what do you call that? Quote unquote involved, not involved, but knowing direct connection, where the existence of Singapore Film Festival. Singapore Film Festival I think is responsible to bring out the indie films, because they believe that to have exposure for films for those guys, then those guys will make films and they are exposed to other films. I think that's a clever approach to encourage young filmmakers to involve, because to expose them, because a lot of filmmakers here they wanted to do films in a very romantic way, but they don't know, they are not exposed, they are not aware of what kind of films. They never have seen a film from Laos, so they do not. There's no comparative studies. So Singapore Film Festival cleverly, I think, and strategically cater for that. So timbullah Eric Koo. That's sort of when I was making my film too. That's and from there, he was a very clever producer also. So he produced Rosenthal, and until now, there is a healthy. There is a valid Singapore cinema that is been sort of boleh ditayangkan in. They have the screening where the cinema is being put in the world map also. So for me, so these things I was quite aware, because all this kind of brief post Jalan Ampas history I have a chance to see during my quote-unquote involvement with Singapore Film Festival, because I always been invited there. And if you wanted to know the Singapore cinema during Jalan Ampas, I think read the book. And so, putting this in context, then we go to you, Hassan. Is if you see this, it was made about 2 years ago. It was made about 2-3 years ago. It was. When I say made, it's been released. And this is like if you see, it's made by new guys, young guys, and there are 4 directors and four stories. And just like I think the new, like last week we were talking about the Indonesian cinema, one of the breakthrough that they were trying to do is to have a omnibus kind of thing, because a film selepas after Garin is with Kaldesak. I think that is an important point where Singapore cinema just take off in a different tangent from Garin, because they began to watch instead of from Garin. Before that, they made movie by watching their society, their life. But from the new ones like Joko Anwar, all these people, they make movies for movies. I felt, Mantovani, they make movie. They are heavily influenced by Tarantino, because Tarantino make movies for movies. I felt, So with this, Singapore Pasca post Jalan Ampas have a very strong tradition of omnibus. Eric Koo's itself did like Be With Me. There is also three stories. His film went to Cannes the first time they went to Cannes was 12 stories. Also some kind of a bunch of vignettes that interlink. And Be With Me was an omnibus that was directed by Chinese, Indian, and Malay. So this is interesting to me, because I've never heard about this. When I saw this, I see that it also has been directed by, just now I read, by a Chinese director. I'm sure he's young. A Malay director, Indian director. But unlike the others, this is only one writer. Yeah, like Be With Me, these guys came with their own stories. So this is interchange. So that's my just a brief introduction. You can ask in a brief introduction about Singapore cinema, and Hassan can speak whatever you like.
Thank you, U-Wei, and thank you to KL Film School for inviting me to talk. So I have not been following Singapore cinema in as great detail as U-Wei, who's been actually involved over in Singapore. I worked with quite a few of the veterans of Jalan Ampas, like Jamil Sulong. I directed M. Amin and Ibrahim Pendek, and I was working with Shu Xiaomeng, owner of Nusantara Film.
Yeah.
And I was working with him doing commercials when he came over in the 70s. So quite a bit of what I've written in my book has come from conversations with them. But at the time, I wasn't thinking of writing a book, so I never put things down in writing. So I put down whatever I could remember from the conversation, and quite a lot of it had to be, of course, reconfirmed from other sides. Huh? So, so what do I talk about?
You can speak about actually this program is we tend to understand films, ASEAN films. So this time in Singapore, you can speak about the film itself is because Hassan is very big into intertext and semiotics, so he can talk about whatever. So if you want to speak about 1 hour to daylight, it's okay. I'm just trying to get a brief background on the Singapore cinema, so we can put this film in the Singapore cinema or in ASEAN cinema. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Or you can talk about this film as a text by itself. Also fine.
So basically, when I saw this, I was thinking of 12 Stories, Eric's School.
Sorry, yes.
And it begins with the death. Someone committed suicide, and then we follow his ghost, and then we begin to see the stories of all the other people living in the HDB flats, and what a nasty life that they are living. So this aspect of being Singapore being such a depressing place, and the element of claustrophobia, you can see that they being a small nation, and then people living in these cramped quarters, has become a very good subject for a couple of filmmakers, Eric Koo and this. But I saw it's written as co-directors.
Yeah,
not directors.
that's interesting. I wonder how they direct, kan? In what segment? How they function.
It was very seamless. Okay, right. And it's not about. It's actually there's a little bit about loss of identity arising from the post-colonial mentality, which you can spot amongst the production design and even in the names of the characters themselves. For instance, the Malay guy is Andy, the wife is Tia. It's not Malay names, and maybe it's short form from something, but it's significant.
Bicara.
It's significant.
Still not Malay.
And also the Indian girl, Alicia, it's not an Indian name. So these are the subtle elements that are in the film, which the director puts in to make a comment about what is happening in Singapore. And the way it's shot, whether it's outside, whether it's inside, it's all claustrophobic. That they're stuck, they have nowhere to go. And whether it's inside the house or whether it's outside the house, you can see the same kind of the elements of design, the tall buildings and so on, and inside the Malay family's house also, the way the decor is a reflection of what is outside. And it also made me remember the film The Apprentice, which is about what has happened to Singapore. So being in prison and being outside prison is the same thing. And at the end, the guy who appears to be a mentor to the young guy also ends up dying. He's on a death ride. We do not see him dying, but it's a death ride that he cannot take it anymore also. And there's an element, there's a funny segment about the Chinese guy, the Indian guy, the immigrant. So whether they are immigrants or whether they are not immigrant, they are Singaporeans themselves, there's not much difference. Everybody is facing problems. So basically, I can see that a lot of films are about either it's the humanity of man or the inhumanity of man. But here, I think the subtle comment is against the system. Last month, the month before, I was in the jury in Macau, and we gave the award, NATPEC jury, and we gave the award to the film from China. I think one of the reasons in Jalan Ampas, where we cannot see any element of nationalism coming out or criticism about the authorities, is because it was in the contract. The directors cannot make a comment at all. So that's why I call it an artificial cinema in Singapore of the 50s and the 60s. But P. Ramlee did make something very subtle, and this was in Pendeka Bujang Lapok, where Ahmad Nisfu appears and is wearing a very Western style of dress with a cocked hat. That's as far as he got. And then now also they are not making any direct comment. You can see in the film, there's absolutely no comment. We see the police behaving as policemen, and the policemen say we have to uphold the law and peace and so on. And in 12 stories, the young man who is also trying to uphold what he feels Singapore should be, in the end he becomes crazy. That is quite significant in giving a comment on what has happened to Singapore. So in this film that won in China, it's called Angels Wear White. There was also a comment against the police. So if you make a comment against the authorities, which you should not, because it will be definitely censored, but you have to do it in a very subtle manner using the cinema language. And in Angels Wear White, Police High Commissioner is a pedophile, and we never see him. We only see his car, and then in one scene, a policeman who is investigating, we hear his voice, we don't see his face, and he's saying we are investigating the case and we will take action, and then only the camera shows his face. So of course the censors don't understand the film language, so they wouldn't know. They can't censor. So the law is you cannot talk bad about the police or the authorities. But the filmmaker managed to get over that. And Eric Koo did the same thing. And even in this film, you can see it's very, very subtle. And in The Apprentice, also similarly. And that is what cinema should be. You cannot criticize directly, because once you do that, it becomes too. And this is why Yasmin Ahmad Sepet and Gubra is a problem, because want to teach, want to get across a message. So I do criticize her in my book. So my book is not just about the history, it's also a little bit of analysis and quite a bit of criticism. So this film, having different races, of course, I think now the young people there do not talk about race. This is the impression that I get, that everybody has got to succeed based on their own merit. And I think that's working in Singapore to a certain extent, where they do not have all this, whether it is underlying or not, I do not know. But on the surface, the people that I meet and so on, they don't have all of that anymore, unlike in Malaysia, where it's still very strong. So I think that's...
Okay, I just want to... is any
I mean, one of the things that you're saying about being able to have criticism at the very beginning, said was funded partially by the Arts Council. And when the Arts Council funds, and it's only $50,000, they demand script approval. They demand script approval. If the NAC finances, they have to approve the script. So that means that there's already, like in the old days, there's already, that source of funding is automatically a form of pre-censorship. And so that just sort of to reiterate what you were saying about that, that's very directly there in a way that people outside of Singapore would never know about.
No.
Because if you're independently financed, there's no pre-censorship anymore, as there used to be in the old days.
Oh, it's no more now.
No more. You can shoot. I mean, that's one of the things they love to say in Singapore. You can shoot whatever you want, you can edit whatever you want, and then afterwards now they'll decide if they'll show it or not, unless you get money from the government.
That is over here. That is in Malaysia. You can show whatever you want.
And you can ship it out.
Yeah.
You can show it in another country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. I just want, looking at the structure, this film as a text. It's about stress, and I think everybody is very stressful. But then it seems that the immigrants do not have a future in Singapore, or Singapore don't want them.
Dehumanized.
Because both of them went back, but then the Singaporean, whatever problem, they are happy ending. Right? The mother and father, the kid, the grandfather is, so it's So I thought Hassan will attack that. I'm surprised to see that.
I wasn't very happy. I wasn't very happy with that because it was not going in the direction which it presented at the very beginning.
Because immediately, that one scene twice, that they're coming to the door. That means, intruding. There's a semiotik orang semiotik ni. Intruding, So he attacked, and it's about something funky here. I can't stand your smell. It's very sensitive. You know what I mean? And that was emphasized.
That is very subtle.
That is the prologue dia tau. And then that scene was repeated all over again. It just like pump. And then only the story opens with misunderstanding, stress, just do not connect, and then whoever do not belong here have to go.
That's the binary opposite that is quite strong in the film. That's why I think they had the prologue of the Chinese woman at the beginning, and then it's being shown again later in the linear storytelling. So Singapore smells. You guys are don't know what you are. So to me, that was the happy ending, the two happy endings. When the little girl came to sleep between the parents, I said, "Oh no!"
Happy ending.
A
union.
It was already a happy ending, but that was like a glitch. I thought, why? There must have been a reason.
Oh, that is. I think, Hassan, that is optimism.
So I think you are right. When they had the group to discuss the script, probably they wanted to do that, but then I think why should they do that?
But what could be a subtle criticism too is that if the dead husband is a guest worker who's Chinese, or it doesn't matter where he's
from China.
Right. It doesn't matter where he's from. His wife should not be there. He shouldn't be living in an HDB flat. He should be living in guest housework dormitories, which are very highly regulated, and you have no access in and out, and you can never bring family.
Yeah, but it's not mentioned whether it's the husband's flat. Probably is.
But she shouldn't be allowed into the country normally. But allowing her into the country, and where the other guy doesn't have his family there, is kind of, I think, a little bit of a subtle way of talking about the how do I put this? Singaporean Chinese have a lot of problems and are very uncomfortable with PRC Chinese, and there's a lot of animosity between the two. And I think that this idea that they somehow have some sort of, that they get more of a privilege to come into the country is something that's maybe subtly being brought in there, that she's even there, because she shouldn't be there. It makes no sense from knowing what the laws are. I mean, how they allow guest workers into a country. You're never allowed to have your spouse. That's why it seems odd that she's living, it's implying that she's living there, but yet their kids are back in China. Mm-hmm. And just it seems, and that maybe that's a subtle sort of indication to that kind of conflict within the country. Now you also see with the fact that one guy is refusing to translate.
Yeah. What comes out is that the rules must be followed.
Oh yeah.
And we can see that it's being emphasized by the lawyer through either she's getting the compensation or it's going to be reduced again. Mm-hmm. It's all about rules. And if you don't like the rules, leave.
Yeah.
So ultimately, these two have to go.
And I think, and same note, if I put this in a little bit different context, this film was made because at the same time, a few years ago, one of the most successful film in Hollywood was Crash. Mm-hmm. And Crash was designed just like this. And before Crash, there's one more film, even if it Crash, is called Crossing Over, Harrison Ford, where it's like a 4 or 5 stories just going through into one, So I think this like ASEAN film cinema, in which is always influenced by what's successful. For example, just now is Bruce Lee was successful, so they model it with a ring of and I think this is interesting. I think the time the young filmmakers here always have to find models of something that's successful, then they try to put their voice into it. I think, maybe.
But I would like to ask the filmmakers themselves, were they happy with the script? Because if the script is like this, and there's this optimism at the end, somehow or other doesn't work as a film. So here you have a text. There's another text which the director creates. But then the director comes into the picture to say, no, I think the ending should be like this, and so on. So we do not know exactly what transpired.
Yeah, we don't know that, right?
I do think that the representation of the ending is almost like it's very superficial. So I don't think it's like a direct sort of like happy ending. It's because it's so superficial. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't tie to the beginning. So it's that sort of paradox that was I think communicated. You get what I'm saying? Is how we just simply push aside the harsh realities in life, because it is so it stood out so much that the happy ending is so superficial. So I feel like it's not so much that it's wrongly written or badly written. I think it's a comment as well. I don't know, that's how I see it.
Or maybe it could be from the point of view of the directors. Well, this is Singapore, life has got to go on. Whether you like it or not, this is how it is. Maybe we can look at it from that point of view.
Yeah, I worked and I directed 4 episodes of Growing Up. The very popular Singapore TV, where the host, it's about Singapore. The family is about Singapore. They're growing up, that symbolizes Singapore. So Singapore has always been dealing with this kind of issues, like where are we going and what we are dealing. This, to me, I see a lot of very stressful. As a film, for me personally, I find it sloppy. I should reserve that. Let's talk about it's a little bit, but we see this as a text, because there's a lot of loopholes that is not been flush out, oversimplifying, whitewashing semua tu. So but then anyway, it's a film that ready. I'm gonna start picking up, man. So because I would love to hear. Saya sangat senang dengar anda punya pendapat dah, sebab saya punya pendapat buang kat betul kan. Okay kan.
I arrived 5 minutes before, so I cannot comment on it.
Tapi bakal lah channel Dr. Norman lah kan. What what you think? Tapi saya jarang saya akan lontar nama-nama. Tapi kalau tengok Bingley dah nak lari dah.
I really enjoyed it so much.
Bingley is one of my favorite art collector, one of the fiercest Malaysian art collector. Dia collect art, so
I truly enjoyed it.
kemana kena
Terima kasih ya.
Okay, Bingley.
Invite me again, please.
Film is when a country do not have a film, the country do not exist.
It's much more exciting than art.
Okay, dah. Ada saja siapa nak cakap, saya bercerita kalau saya sebut nama tak nak cakap, saya faham juga, saja je. Dah.
Saya setuju dengan disebut tadi tentang ending. Saya rasa agak dileraikan dengan begitu mudah, dan mungkin yang memberi satu optimisme, sense of hope and optimism. Tetapi saya rasa tak begitu ini kalau dilihat. Tetapi isu yang kali itu, saya pernah membaca isu itu adalah isu yang sebenarnya pernah berlaku di Singapura, but I cannot recall where I read. Memang isu yang benar pernah berlaku. Jiran daripada China ni pergi menyerang keluarga Tamil yang memasak kari. Pernah berlaku. Ini diambil daripada ini. Dan saya rasa kita lihat kalau secara ini ada representasi pemaparan imigran daripada luar ni dalam beberapa filem Singapura contemporary yang saya lebih suka dari Anthony Chan contohnya, Ilo, ada Filipino Ring, kan, juga itu agak sedikit gelap dan tidak begitu memberi harapan, malah latarnya juga lewat 1990-an, krisis ekonomi Asia begitu. Dan satu lagi yang sangat very bleak and very dark, gritty, getir ni adalah dalam Tamil tu Yellow Bird arahan
baru
juga ada juga itu pendatang daripada China jadi pelacur yang ibu dia juga sewakan bilik mereka kepada pekerja-pekerja daripada China. Itu semua tidak memberi harapan dalam filem-filem yang pengarang itu. Berbanding yang ini saya nampak lebih seperti ada mungkin unsur-unsur yang politically correct dan sebagainya.
Yang Robot adalah filem baru yang baru ada dibuat oleh apa saya kata tadi, saya rasa again kalau kita bincang ending ni kan, macam penyelesaian tu agak terlalu mudah bagi saya dan tidak berani, dan dia tak tolak pada ujung. Contohnya dia nak justifikan yang budak orang yang ayah yang dysfunctioning yang tak bawa duit, yang ada problem masalah kewangan tu dihukum mati dengan jatuhnya apa tu yang pada saya perempuan tu jatuh tu yang dia bergaduh, perempuan tu jatuh, yang that woman jatuh, impap dia dua-dua down. So again dia agak walaupun dia jaga dia want to be politically correct lebih. Although I said the immigrant we must be very careful, but then we don't want to be politically incorrect by killing or banishing all the immigrant watak. Semua itu tiga watak immigrant semua bukan diusir, hampir diusir kan. So
can I just ask, this film, because it's called Utter, it means it's part of the Writers' Festival, so it had to be based on Singaporean short stories or novels. And I couldn't see the type, because this is very typical that I find over there, they always make their type too small. What stories were they based on? It was listed somewhere at the end very quickly.
Yeah, it was written by one person, but then below it was co-written. So I think there's one guy that came up, and then few other writers come and do some writings with the text.
But it was supposed to be based on the point of the festival is that the films are supposed to be based on short stories or novels that have already been published in Singapore. So it should be based on one or two or three stories.
Probably. I don't have that information.
Because in the past they've done them as separate films, and they always do that thing of it has to be generally they want a Malay story, they want an Indian story, they want a Chinese story, and that's how they've done the structure before. Because I've seen these before. I've seen
you've seen this?
Not this one, but other anthologies, and I've had friends who've done other anthologies there.
Okay.
And it's always done through, because when it's Utter, it's done through the Writers' Festival.
Okay. No. Okay. I don't have the information. Okay. We can see this as just the text. That is the background. Okay. And
the use of language is quite significant. English, Malay, Mandarin, and Hokkien, is it?
Yeah, but all of them can speak Mandarin.
So the Indian grandfather, he can speak Chinese, but he doesn't communicate to his own grandchild, isn't it? The granddaughter. He never says anything.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
He did.
But there's a tension between them, kan?
Yeah.
There's a
And the
resentment.
whole film is about people on the edge that things are going to happen, and it's like they are very repressed.
Okay. Very stressful because there was a film that deals with a documentary film, a Singapore film, short film, deals with students that committed suicide because they do not do good in school. Just like Japanese, it's quite interesting. And then it's true. There's other films on the. Remember the Filipino that was executed because of killing the boss tu, siapa done by Tikoy. The Filipino maid that was executed because of the crime she did. So again, about immigrants, it's very important to them, I think. Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, anything else? Yeah. Amil?
Saya tengok sekerat dia.
Sekarang pun boleh tu. Yeah, boleh tu. Jan?
Can I ask, what are your thoughts on the sci-fi aspect of things? The dream device that happened to become a conflict,
Oh, the animation.
and then it's totally abandoned.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Suddenly that came into the picture.
Yeah. The animation kan?
Yeah, and then it's in the
Yeah.
mind of the Indian guy. He imagines what happened because he was watching the news about this guy who died at the beginning, and then we see through his mind, done in animation. I don't know. It felt a bit weird.
Yeah. But at least he can to show two things, and I think that why he let it go because they have the animation. It's interesting to see their animation. You know? They can put it there. At the same time, the dramatic part of that incident too, I think they can get away with animation. The head chop off, it becomes ridiculous. I think the accident, the whole accident. Yeah. Do you have problem with it? You feel it doesn't fit?
Yeah.
Ah.
It just felt. I mean, the animation bit stood out, and it felt really out of place. It felt like they had a group of friends who can do animation, and like, let's have an animation. It felt like that, But what my main concern is how, the opening scene, the few first scenes of the school, and how all the students are on tablets, and this whole gym device became such a major conflict between the husband and wife, and then the sleeping of the parents sleeping, the top angle shot of the parents sleeping. You see like a light device. Did you spot that? There was like a little sort of light device worn by both parents. And so I'm like thinking,
No,
it was
it's special
abandoned.
school.
I felt it was just
Yes,
abandoned.
it's special school, a privileged
Just
school.
put in there and never picked up.
But at the beginning, the school children are very much foregrounded, and I was wondering why. Because the way they were behaving, they were following the rules. The time you got to follow, and then putting the chip behind the ear, and like they are going to be programmed. When actually Singapore is already everybody is programmed to do this, don't do that.
But it seems that the parents want their kids to be in that kind of school, Maybe there's a highly technological, futuristic school probably.
Do you think that they're also presenting a criticism on public schools? What is like public schools in Singapore?
I do not have that comparative.
Have you ever seen The Innocents?
Huh?
Have you ever seen
Yeah.
Wong Chen-Si's The Innocents?
The what?
The Innocents by Wong Chen-Si.
Oh no.
That really shows you sort of that. Even though she's a former colleague, I think that she did a good sign, a way of showing what public school is. Public school in Singapore is about beating any joy out of you.
Okay.
It's really about just learning to conform and all joy is taken out of you. And they like to say, what is it? What's the expression? About how a nail that's sticking up has to get hammered down. And that's very much the idea of the education system there.
Sure. Every parents in Singapore want their children to be 4.0 GPA. Yeah. So for anything else that just whatever feedback that I see, it's very natural for me to see this kind of cinema film from Singapore, because this is the issue that they deal with. You see, and it's always been, especially the young, the Eric Kuz and Pose, they deal with this. But do you think this film is it's not indie film, right? It's not.
No,
Huh?
I can't consider it as an indie film.
Yes.
But it was a commission film.
You commission? Yeah.
It was a commission film. Yeah.
Maybe that's why it was structured like that.
It was commissioned by the, that's what I'm saying. Utter as a series is commissioned by the Singapore Writers Festival. And that's why I looked up online. It's based on 4 short stories. Because they have to be, because that's part of the brief.
Yeah,
So
but
the
films in Singapore has been produced by the Commission or by Rain 3. There's only one production company.
There's also Infinite.
Yeah, so
There's a couple of them. I mean, this is one of the big issues there. I mean, I had an ex-student who got the $500,000 government grant to make a film, and you need $1 million to make a film, and there's no one else to finance anything. And so she never was able to make a film because she could never find any other financing to actually finish it.
Okay.
But this is very particularly a commissioned film. So, if you want to call it independent or not, I don't know. It's a commissioned work.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Anything else for me? I'm just trying to.
Using children to drive home certain points have been used by many filmmakers, including U-Wei. You can see that from his very first film, it ends with children, and children running through the film, and even all the other films, especially in Jogo, I remember, here's this little boy wearing the skull cap, just standing like, is very authoritarian and criticizing his own father. But here, everybody follows the system in this film.
But on your point about how everyone has to conform, that's the point where it happens, and that's why a lot of Singaporean films, a lot of the student films that I remember, really focus on that idea of that point in childhood and being in school, and that being possibly the last chance they actually ever had to be happy, or that's the point where they lose everything. So like here, I think it's really very much about how they've lost everything at this point. But this focus on childhood is very, very common to me in a lot of contemporary Singapore film.
Except for the Indian girl who ran away and who is motherless.
Yeah,
To me, it says something. How the absence of the mother. And is that somehow sort of allow some sort of autonomy on the young character of what's her name, Alicia.
Why she went to steal and so on.
Maybe that is the dramatic part, the act defiance, But I think here all the family base are. Well, that's our favorite. What to do as a filmmaker, we always interested in dysfunctional family, because then we find crisis there. So this is all the 3 families are dysfunctioning. The Alisa's family, there's no parents except it was put under grant. The parents, the smart girl is the quote-unquote hopeless father. Then the Malay is forever fighting, not agreeing. So it's always, So it's just the whole story is based on Singapore have that kind of problem, and not Singapore. I mean, it's we have to deal with this family problem, I'm not saying Singapore have that problem. What am I to say? I got no idea about Singapore family structure because okay. So anything else? Siapa? Mana? Where? Sorry tadi. On the
maybe perhaps I think it was the final scene, right? Where they were having the dialogue at the rooftop, especially mentioning Singapore. They was as if so proud Singapore to achieve all this. So maybe that's any significance with the whole film. Maybe
harus bersyukur lah.
Actually, that's dramatic irony, where the audience knew what was happening, but here's a character in the story that doesn't know what the audience knows.
Is this the bio?
So she carries on her life as it is, doesn't care about anybody else. But the other guy, he knew what was going on. He has always been very silent. He's feeling it very deeply inside him.
He's still. Yes. Kalau scene tu, kalau pembikin filem dia Azhar, dia jatuh cinta dah tu dengan perempuan tu lah.
Life still have to go on, sir.
And significant, he was shot high up there. That she only sees the big picture, but doesn't know what's happening here and there, which the audience saw. I agree. It's a bit sloppy in places.
For me, so
So
the reason I choose this because of the omnibus study, because they have and then there is a segment of animation. So me, I know Hassan is big on animation, so I chose this to suit dia punya dia punya forte. Macam last week Dr. Norman kan, because he's a big fan of Indonesian cinema kan. So how's the animation? How's to you?
I don't know.
Is it
For me,
good?
it doesn't work.
I mean, no. The animation work, not in the.
The style is good.
The style, I thought so too. Actually, I'm impressed with the animation sebenarnya because it's so un-Hollywood. I like that.
Maybe done by graduates of NTU, because there's a shop of NTU, the Art Design and Media building with the green roof. It's grass actually.
Dia tak macam
Aladdin.
I could see my old office in that shop.
Oh really?
Oh, you were there.
I would talk.
Sorry, can you introduce your other?
My name is Ken Feinstein. I'm a professor.
You're the husband of?
No. I'm a professor at Sunway University.
Okay.
So I've taught the film program there. I taught the film program at NTU.
Oh, good.
So you could just from looking at it, I could tell that they were NTU students, and the animators were definitely NTU students. The head writer was an
You know
NTU
Hannes
student.
Rao, right? Hannes Rao?
Oh yeah. Oh god.
A good friend of mine.
Yeah.
I've been there a couple of times.
I've known Hannes. Well, yeah, I've known Hannes for now almost a dozen years.
Tak aja.
And so, I thought it was very funny to see the shot. Personally, for me, to see the shot of NTU was very, very funny to see. But I could just tell.
Professor, this session is very santai. I hope it's the first Malay word. Santai is very casual and cool. So
No, just even the cinematography style, I can tell is the cinematographers obviously went to NTU also. I can just see them there, and there's very common for me to see. But I find it always very interesting because the way that they use landscape is very alienating. There's always, you see a landscape, but you never seem to be able to engage with it, which I think is very significant. It's very good for
my experience shooting growing up, because we did Singapore, I find it it's not much to show for the landscape, you know, because it's all the buildings, and so I will imagine these are mountains actually. These are my Monument Valley, yes, so we should.
But then it's hard. Yeah. No, I find I find it really fascinating when I see people trying to do landscape work, even in photography in Singapore, because they tend to find places that no one would ever go to, because there's very little, because everything's sort of here and there. It's very, very hard to kind of get anything that has any feeling of space.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the people who teaches cinematography, there's one of the few people I know who actually can do good landscape photography in Singapore. And he's actually Belgian.
Belgium, later you went to Griffith University, right?
No,
Not that one?
No, it's someone who doesn't talk about it. No, it's this guy, Lucas Gijonia, who's still at MTU.
Eric Ko did a great job in My Magic. I don't know if you've seen.
Later on. Yeah.
Totally, it's not Singapore at all. It's another part of Singapore which nobody sees. It's a beautiful film. You need to see it.
Yeah.
And there's an optimism at the end, but it's a different kind of optimism, where the boy gets a vision of his father and mother who have died, and they appear. It's a magical realism, or maybe he imagines it, and it means hope for him for the future.
Yeah. If I can take credit, if it's just anecdotes, Eric's, because we know Eric's 12 stories. That story started when me and him talking about ghost story in Switzerland. We were there, and that's why he credited me, because when it's interesting when Singapore break from the called Malay based things, that's what I think. I think they made those fighting film rather than pursuing Pontianak or other things. But then they are used to it. Later they went back. So, and for example, 12 stories. It's about ghosts, because we see Singapore is very modern, where ghosts, we don't associate ghosts with Singapore, concrete jungles. But then interesting, the filmmakers are attracted to Pontianak stories, because the other later on, like another filmmaker, Chick, I think, did one called Pontianak, and later and recently also they came here to shoot some Pontianak movie. Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, as a producer, one of the things with Eric Koo is that he tries to tell everyone shoot in Chinese only, and he encourages everyone. The students are all doing films in Chinese. They're not doing films in English. They're not doing multilingual films. This is multilingual because that's part of the brief of the commission.
But
Eric Koo always
Be My
says,
Magic is not Chinese, it's not Chinese language film.
But I'm saying that Eric, as a producer, tends to tell everyone, and Mandarin is not the language of Singapore.
But Eric doesn't speak Chinese.
I know, but he still says as a business thing. Yeah,
That's new
he
to me.
encourages everyone when people are, and when he talks about talking as a producer.
So we should be encouraging over here to everybody to do it in Malay language then. No?
Why not?
Okay, that's it.
I mean, honestly, if it's a good movie, it'll work internationally, right?
Yeah.
Who cares what language it is?
True.
I can think of tons of movies that have been in all sorts of languages that have done well internationally, because if they're good movies, they're good movies. Subtitles are an easy thing to put in.
Yeah.
But Singaporean movies should be multilingual like this, and to encourage them to encourage Mandarin, which is not the language of Singapore, is also very artificial. And this is one of the
And
things.
their English are all from all over the place. I work in Singapore. One guy have an English accent. The other guy has a British accent. American accent. It's true.
Australians.
Australians.
All of them,
Yeah. That's a big issue there actually. Because we remember. I was remember working.
How do we situate Jack Neo Singapore?
Okay.
in the context of all the
Yeah.
other filmmakers.
Yeah, okay,
In
Jack Neo.
2007, I was invited by the Asian Film Archives to do a workshop, training the trainers workshop, for secondary school teachers to use film in the classroom. So I was asked to compare P. Ramlee's depiction of Singapore and Jack Neo's depiction of Singapore. So when I started to analyze, Jack Neo cannot hold a candle to P. Ramlee.
but in a way, it's in a way funny way. In a way, Jack Neo is like P. Ramlee in a way, you know? the Singapore version, because he writes, he acts, he sings, he directs, and he only did not publish a magazine called Majalah Filem, you know, in which P. Ramlee did. You know? So, but true, you know, but Jack Neo's film is about the lower, the Marahan Singaporean, you know, where their English is Singlish. I know
stupid.
I know stupid. Money not enough.
Yeah, but he also comes out of Media Corp, so he's going to have that very television kind of thing, and then it's kind of movies in some ways are just extended TV shows.
He looks like he's propagating the establishment, but sometimes he does it with tongue in cheek.
Oh yeah.
There was one scene where the father and the daughter are going to cross the road. The daughter says, wait, the light is still red, don't cross. He doesn't care. He walks. Then suddenly he sees policemen coming over and he starts to surrender. Then actually the policemen are chasing some kind of robber. That was very clever.
What film is this?
I can't remember what it was.
Because he's a comedian,
Yeah.
He's a comedian. Yeah, Jack Neo.
Sometimes over the top.
Yeah. Because the last film I saw by him was started in Malaysia, and can't remember his latest film.
I actually was working with him to translate I Not Stupid 2 into Malay, and then I decided to abandon ship because when Boris Wu came in as director, he changed everything that was written because my brief was to make it Malaysian. So I left, and then the film was hammered by the star himself.
Okay, just a note. When the directors of the Cleopatra Wong did another film called Dynamite Johnson. Yeah. Okay, I remember that. You remember that? So he wanted to gain more audience, so he wanted to bring Malaysia in, because after all, one of the partner is Malaysian. That's when he asked Sarima to join in.
ASEAN 5, I think. ASEAN 5.
Company here, I remember BAS. The man is Ashraf, the Malay man. His last name, from Zahri Filem. Check Zahri Filem. I never knew what went wrong because filem tu tak jadi. So I wonder what happened. I never got any information, but I remember they wanted to do a film together with Sarima and this Mary Lee, where she was a fighter. And I remember. But
now I remember the title. Just Follow Law.
Just Follow Law.
The one way
Jack Neo. Okay. Anything else? For me, I think I that's it. I know about Singapore cinema. Yeah. And it's coming up very nicely actually, you know. So just like the last Indonesian cinema where film, it's very strong film, but this I think is not the best Singapore film, right? It's not. I think it's not. To me, for me, it's a good study to look into it.
It's not a festival film.
He plays festival.
Oh, he played, huh?
Yes, he played. Yeah.
One of the weaknesses with Singapore, with at least film education in Singapore, is there's a big emphasis on the technical, and they really don't spend enough time teaching them script writing. And they really, so you get something like this that's just kind of a mess, because they really don't know how to pull this all together.
But I saw another film, in which to me one of my favorite, a Singapore film about 2 years ago. It was shot in Bosnia. It's called Temporary Visa. It's that is where this Singapore guy, I think, went to study in Bosnia and did his film there. I think it's an excellent film. Yeah, Temporary Visa. Yeah, because he's losing his visa is going to be expired, so he went around trying to extend his visa. I thought that's even interesting than Yellow Bird, I think. Yeah. Anything else? Top, ada apa-apa nak diletak atas meja? Khalid. Elon, jadi ya, I think
for the students, Astro has recorded quite a number of interviews. I was the host and U-Wei was on the show. Asian directors, including Bo Junfeng, who did Apprentice, Eric Poe, and so on, and it's now free. You can see it. It's online. And my papers, there are 81 of my papers on Malaysian and world cinema on academia.edu. So just type my name and you can see it's being accessed around the world.
Saya recommend buku yang sinema Malaysia muat dalam botol itu saja.
Cinema in a bottle.
Oh ya.
And subtitle
muat dibotolkan ya?
Bukan.
Okay.
Subtitle is 100 years and a bit more of wayang. So the color of my books is yellow, and everybody said, "Oh, you are a British supporter." So I had a good. For me, cinema is spiritual, which is what U-Wei also says. So the yellow color is a symbolic of that spirituality. So that's why. And I have a bottle with film strips coming out. There's a lot of films there. So Malaysian cinema, which is in the bottle, that means Chinese, Malays, Indian, and now we have Karazhan and so on. We don't know who made it. But only a few come out, and they are in the form of fireworks. That means we celebrate these few that stand out. I had to tell all this to the designer, who is a university graduate. He didn't understand all this.
Sebab saya been sending notes about his book to everybody, and then one of them said, dia ambil daripada tajuk saya ke Wei ya? Apa ni? Anu dalam botol ke? Yeah, there's a movie called Anu dalam botol by Raja Azmi. So, yeah, tidak. Because, okay. Because he wants me to ask you.
Actually, it came from Amir Muhammad. When I did this very long essay for the Lyon Film Festival, we wanted to publish Southeast Asian cinema. So I had to write on it. So I asked Amir, do you want to write it together? I ended up writing the whole thing myself. And I think he just gave one short paragraph. Then I asked him, what can be our title? And as usual, just came up, Malaysian cinema in a bottle. So that's where it came from. But his understanding of it is different from my understanding.
Yeah. Sound sekarang nak nakal macam oversimplifying pula kan. Okay. Next week, I think the next one, I think is a very interesting film. I would highly recommend that film dari Filipina. Kita dari Indonesia pergi Singapura, pergi Filipina, tentang Melayu Bajau sekarang yang dipindahkan ke Manila, yang dia tak biasa apa jadi, dia orang laut kan. So the film deals with that. It's very good film. It's called Laut by Louis. I can't pronounce his last name. Also, all these films saya minta izin lah, so don't worry. Ini pun nanti so it's been the director is allowing me to screen all these films. Hanya dia, I said they love your films. So and if that's nothing else, that's it. Thank you. Lon? Yeah.
I have a documentary called Garing dan Denok dan Garing, Muslim couple.
I don't know. I was a jury and I gave him a prize. I love that. I love
Muslim
that.
couple wearing
Yeah.
pigs.
Yeah.
Very interesting family.
Yeah. I love. It's a documentary. Yeah. I was a jury. I think yeah. Yeah. So. I think. You said you had anything else? Ni peluang ni kan?